The sea was black that night, not from the absence of light, but from something deeper, something unnatural. The stars above seemed to flicker nervously, as if even they feared what was rising from the horizon. A storm was coming, yet there was no wind, no thunder, no warning, just silence, and the slow, rhythmic pulse of something vast moving beneath the water. People in the coastal town had been whispering for weeks, strange signals echoing through radio static, ships vanishing without a trace, fishermen returning with burns that shimmered faintly under the moonlight, claiming they saw a shadow ship gliding beneath the waves. No one believed them until tonight. On the edge of the docks, a small group watched the horizon, their faces pale in the glow of lantern light. They weren't soldiers or scientists, just ordinary people trying to make sense of the impossible. One of them, an old man who had once served at sea, said he had seen that shape before, years ago, during a night that history forgot. "It's not a ship," he whispered. "It's a messenger." No one asked from where. The silence said enough. Then, the water broke. A vessel unlike any design on Earth rose from the depths, cloaked in shadows that seemed to absorb the moonlight. Its surface shimmered with lines of burning silver, symbols that shifted as if alive. It made no sound, yet everyone could feel it humming inside their bones. The old man fell to his knees. The others stepped back, fear trembling through their hands. They all knew this was no ordinary arrival. It was a return. Above the clouds, hidden from human eyes, something else stirred. A fleet, vast, ancient, and broken, drifted in orbit. Fragments of colossal ships, once part of an empire that had ruled stars, now scattered like ghosts. Their creators were gone, consumed by the very power they sought to control. But their weapons, their machines, their hunger for dominance, those still lived on. And now, something from that fallen empire had found its way to Earth. As the black ship settled near the shore, a single beam of light swept across the town. Every radio, every screen, every signal flared to life. A voice, distorted and layered with echoes, spoke in a language no one could understand. Yet every person felt its meaning, an awakening, a call, a warning. The ground trembled. The sea began to boil. Shadows twisted across the sand like living smoke. And in the midst of it all, one of the watchers stepped forward, drawn as if by fate. They didn't know why, but something inside them recognized that voice. It wasn't calling to the world. It was calling to them. Then, in a flash of light, everything went silent again. The ship remained, unmoving, waiting, as if deciding whether to destroy or to speak. The sky darkened, and the first drops of burning rain began to fall. No one knew it yet, but this was the beginning of the end. The fall of empires, the birth of something far greater, born of fire and shadows. And somewhere in that silence, the earth listened back. The world changed the moment that ship appeared. No one slept that night. Every news channel replayed the same trembling footage from the coast, the black vessel rising from the ocean like a ghost from another world. Governments called it an unidentified craft. Scientists argued about its structure and energy signature. But the people who had seen it up close didn't need explanations. They felt it in their bones. Something alive had come through the sea, and it wasn't leaving. In the days that followed, strange patterns began appearing around the globe. Faint signals pulsing from the oceans, lights flickering in the clouds, following no weather pattern known to man. Satellites recorded shadows moving through the water, enormous and slow, like the stirring of something ancient beneath the surface. Experts tried to trace the signals back to the black ship, but every transmission looped endlessly, as if the ship were listening, waiting for a reply it already knew would come. Among those still haunted by that night was the person who had stepped toward the ship. Since that moment, their life had become a blur of whispers and half-remembered dreams. They saw visions of vast cities made of light, floating in darkness. They heard the echo of voices, human and not, repeating the same phrase, "The Empire burns." Each time they woke, they found strange marks on their skin, faint and glowing like the same shifting lines that had covered the black ship's hull. They didn't tell anyone, not even the others who had stood with them on the docks. But deep down, they knew the ship had chosen them. The thought terrified them more than the ship itself. Meanwhile, teams of researchers, soldiers, and engineers surrounded the coastal zone, sealing it off from the public. Drones hovered above the water, scanning, recording, analyzing. But every time one came close to the black ship, its systems failed, and it dropped into the sea without a trace. The ship never moved, never responded. Yet somehow it was changing the world around it. The tides shifted. Compasses spun wildly. People living nearby reported seeing shadows in their homes, hearing low mechanical whispers in their sleep. Some said it was an alien weapon. Others claimed it was a relic from an ancient civilization that once ruled the stars. But a few, those who studied the fragments of data hidden in the ship's transmissions, spoke quietly of something far greater. They believed the black ship wasn't the beginning of an invasion, it was the end of one. Long before humanity existed, an empire had risen among the stars, an empire that stretched across galaxies. But power had consumed it. Fire and darkness had devoured its creators, leaving only machines to wander through time, searching for life to remember them. The ship that now rested on Earth's shore might be one of those remnants, a messenger carrying the final memory of a civilization that destroyed itself. And yet the marks on that one person's skin suggested something else entirely. The ship hadn't come just to remember. It had come to awaken. That night, as they stood alone near the shore once more, they felt the ground tremble softly beneath their feet. The waves glowed faintly in the moonlight, rippling with threads of silver light that stretched toward the horizon. And somewhere deep beneath the water, something began to stir again. The air grew colder. The silence deepened. Then the faint hum returned, the same sound that had shaken the night of the ship's arrival, only this time it wasn't alone. Far out to sea, more shadows began to rise. The second ship surfaced just before dawn. Then another and another. By the time the sun rose, there were 5 of them, each one different in shape and size, but all carrying the same black sheen that seemed to swallow the light. The ocean had turned still, too still, as if afraid to move around them. Satellites captured the formation from above, and within hours, the world was watching again. Every government claimed control of the situation, yet none dared to approach. The ships had become silent guardians of something unseen. The person marked by the first ship, now under quiet observation by researchers, could feel the others long before they appeared. The pulse in their skin grew stronger with each new arrival, each vibration matching perfectly with the signals detected in the ocean. They didn't understand why, but they knew the ships were connected, to each other, and somehow, to them. Every dream they had now showed flashes of a burning sky and massive cities collapsing into the sea. The voices in their head whispered of betrayal, of an empire that had fallen not from war, but from within. Meanwhile, inside the restricted coastal zone, tension was building. Scientists argued with military leaders about what to do next. Some wanted to destroy the ships before more arrived. Others insisted they were part of something far beyond human understanding. A chance to learn about the lost alien empire whose ruins might be hidden beneath the waves. The black ships didn't respond to any scans, but their presence had begun to affect the planet's magnetic field. Compasses failed, tides shifted, and deep-sea sensors picked up strange readings far below the ocean floor, as if massive structures were waking up. In the nearby town, fear turned into unrest. Fishermen swore the water tasted like metal. Children drew pictures of glowing figures standing beside the ships, though no one else could see them. Power outages rolled through the region every night at the same time, followed by that deep, distant hum. People began to wonder if the ships were communicating not through sound but through thought. The marked individual tried to stay away from the shore, but each day the pull grew stronger. They started hearing the voice again, clearer now. It told them to remember the fire. It showed them glimpses of another life, one where they stood among towering beings of light. They didn't know if it was memory or manipulation, but part of them began to believe that maybe humanity had a connection to the fallen empire. Maybe Earth wasn't their first home. A secret division within the research team believed the same thing. They uncovered fragments of ancient writings found in deep-sea ruins years ago, describing ships of the void that would one day return to awaken the sleepers of ash. They were convinced that the black ships were not here to conquer, but to reclaim something buried within humanity itself. Still, not everyone agreed. Some saw the gathering ships as a countdown, a sign that whatever wiped out the alien empire was about to happen again. The researchers watched as faint cracks of blue light began to appear on the surface of the ocean between the ships, forming a pattern like a constellation. The person with the marks stood on the shore that night, staring at the strange glow spreading across the water. The hum grew louder, steady as a heartbeat. Then, for the first time, one of the ships moved. Its surface split open, revealing a hollow core of blinding light. And from within that light, something began to take shape. The light from the ship's core was almost too bright to look at. It poured across the waves, scattering into the fog and turning the night into something unreal. The watchers on the shore shielded their eyes, unsure if they were seeing a form or just light itself trying to become one. Then, slowly, a silhouette began to appear inside the radiance. A tall figure, human in shape, but shimmering like it was made of energy and smoke. The marked person took a step forward before they even realized it. The pull was stronger than ever, like gravity itself had shifted to center on that being. Every heartbeat echoed the hum coming from the ships. Around them, the others backed away, fear twisting into panic. Radios crackled with static. The ocean began to rise and fall in long, rhythmic waves that matched the pulse of the light. Then the being spoke, but not through sound. Its words appeared directly in the minds of everyone present, a voice that felt both near and impossibly distant. "We did not come to conquer," it said. "We came to remember what was lost." The words carried both sorrow and warning. The marked person fell to their knees, gripping their head as flashes of other worlds burned through their mind. Giant towers of glass and fire, fleets of black ships drifting through the stars, and a single word whispered over and over, rebirth. The soldiers aimed their weapons instinctively, but before they could act, every electronic device in a 50-mile radius died. Lights went out. Cameras failed. Even the hum of the ships disappeared, leaving a silence so deep it felt alive. For a moment, it seemed like the world had stopped breathing. Then, from far out at sea, a new sound rose. A faint, distant roar, growing louder each second. Another ship was coming. But this one was different. The first 5 ships had risen silently from the depths. This one broke through the surface like a storm, scattering water high into the air. Its hull wasn't smooth and silver-black like the others. It was broken, burned, and scarred, its light flickering unevenly. Something about it felt wrong, out of balance, like a wound that refused to heal. The being of light turned sharply toward it, and for the first time its calm expression shifted, fear. The marked person felt a surge of emotions that weren't their own. Terror, grief, recognition. In a voice that trembled inside their mind, the being whispered, "It followed us." The ocean around the damaged ship began to churn violently. Waves crashed against the shore, pulling sand and debris back into the sea. The air filled with static, the smell of ozone, and something else, something metallic and bitter, almost like burnt air. The being extended its hand, and the other ships responded instantly, shifting into a defensive formation, their glowing lines brightening in unison. The researchers, watching from their temporary base, couldn't believe what they were seeing. Every instrument was offline, yet through the glass they could see the impossible, the black ships forming a pattern that looked almost alive, like a shield pulsing with energy. "They're preparing for something," one whispered. Another replied, "Or someone." The marked person could feel it too. The damaged ship wasn't part of the same fleet. It carried a different energy, chaotic, cold, and ancient. Inside it, something was moving, not light, but shadow. They could sense it trying to reach them, stretching across the waves with invisible threads that touched the edges of their thoughts. They tried to push it away, but the harder they fought, the stronger it became. Then, a memory that wasn't theirs burst through. A vision of the alien empire's final days, the skies filled with burning ships. The stars themselves seemed to collapse, and in the center of it all was a single black sun, pulsing with the same shadow that now spread across the ocean. The being's voice returned, faint and trembling. "It destroyed us once. It must not awaken again." The marked person understood, even if no one else did. The fallen empire hadn't died from war or rebellion. It had died from this thing, this force of shadow that consumed light and memory alike. Somehow, the ships had fled across time and galaxies to escape it, and Earth had become their final refuge. But the shadow had followed. The ground trembled. The air shimmered as if reality itself were bending. The damaged ship split open along its center, and from within came a wave of black mist that rolled across the water like smoke from a dying star. Wherever it touched, the sea froze solid, glowing faintly with veins of dark light. The other ships fired beams of energy toward it, but the mist absorbed everything, growing stronger, darker, spreading wider. The marked person felt the voice inside them grow desperate. "You are the key," it said. "You carry what we lost. The memory must survive." But before they could respond, the shadow touched their mind, and everything changed. Suddenly they were standing somewhere else. Not the shore, not the earth, but a world made of shattered glass and burning air. The sky above was filled with the wreckage of countless ships. Towers lay broken, and rivers of silver light ran through cracks in the ground. The same shadow was there, too, rising like a storm, swallowing everything it touched. And in the center of that destruction stood the being of light, reaching out, not to fight, but to pass something on. A spark, a memory, a seed. The marked person realized this vision wasn't a dream. It was a message, a warning, and a plea for help all at once. The ships hadn't come to invade. They had come to plant the last piece of their dying civilization in the only world left untouched. Humanity wasn't a bystander. It was part of the legacy. The vision shattered. They gasped for air as they fell to the ground, the world snapping back into focus. The being stood before them again, but its form was fading, its light flickering like a dying flame. "It knows," it whispered. "The shadow knows what you are." Behind it, the damaged ship unleashed a deafening pulse that tore through the air. Every window along the coast exploded. The other ships strained to hold their formation, their glowing lines dimming under the force of the blast. The sea turned black again, but not from the night, from something spreading within it. The marked person looked up, heart pounding, as the voice in their head began to split, one side still belonging to the being of light, and the other, darker voice, whispering in perfect rhythm with it. Two forces inside them, battling for control. Light and shadow, memory and oblivion. All around, the world watched as the ocean began to glow from beneath. Something vast was rising from the deep. Not another ship, but something older, larger, its outline too enormous to comprehend. The being of light turned toward it and whispered one final phrase, the words barely audible above the growing roar of the sea. The Empire is not dead. It's waking. And as the first rays of dawn touched the black water, the sky itself began to fracture with lines of light, as if the barrier between worlds was starting to break. The marked person felt the ground tremble beneath them and realized the truth too late. The shadow hadn't followed the ships. It had always been here, waiting for something or someone to bring it back to life. The hum returned, louder than ever, shaking the air and the earth alike. The light from the ships pulsed in defiance. The shadow rose to meet it, and between them, caught in the pull of both forces, one fragile human stood, torn between saving a dying universe and protecting their own world from being consumed by the same fire and shadows that had ended the last. The world was breaking apart. The sky had turned into a storm of light and shadow, every color bending and twisting in the air. The black ships floated like dying stars, their once perfect forms now trembling under the force of the rising darkness. The marked person stood at the edge of the shore, waves crashing around them, the sound of the hum pulsing through their chest. They could feel both forces, light and shadow, pulling at them, fighting for control. The being of light was fading, its voice barely a whisper. The shadow, vast and endless, spoke louder with every heartbeat, offering power, survival, and a promise that felt too tempting to ignore. The sky split open as the ocean erupted. From the deep rose the final shape, a colossal form that wasn't a ship but something older, alive, made from the same darkness that had consumed the alien empire. Its eyes burned like hollow stars, and its voice echoed through the planet's very core. "You were meant to carry us," it said, not aloud but inside every mind at once. "You are the bridge between what was and what will be." The marked person fell to their knees, gripping the sand as flashes of memory flooded their mind again, images of alien worlds falling to ruin, of countless beings trying to flee the shadow's reach. And then, a vision of Earth, still untouched, waiting. They understood now. The black ships hadn't come to destroy or to conquer. They had come to hide something, to protect the last trace of their light within human DNA. That's why they were chosen. Humanity was the final vessel of a lost civilization. But now, the shadow wanted it back. The being of light appeared one last time, kneeling beside them, its form flickering like a candle about to go out. "You have what we no longer can hold," it said. "The fire of creation, the memory of balance. It's yours now. Choose." The ocean boiled. The air cracked with thunder. The marked person looked between the two forces, the fading light that had guided them and the shadow that had hunted it through time. For a heartbeat, it felt impossible to decide. Then something within them stirred, a memory of the first night on the shore, of fear giving way to wonder, of the realization that the unknown wasn't always a threat. They stood, raising their hand toward the light, and for the first time, they didn't resist the power inside them. They let it rise. The mark on their skin blazed white. The ground beneath them split open, and a wave of energy shot outward, cutting through sea and sky alike. The black ships flared like suns, their energy feeding into the pulse. The shadow screamed, a sound that wasn't sound at all, but a deep silence that folded the world around it. And then, in a single blinding flash, everything stopped. When the light faded, the sky was clear again. The ships were gone. The ocean was still. The marked person stood alone, the mark on their skin now dim and quiet. For the first time, the world felt peaceful. They looked to the horizon and saw something shimmering faintly beneath the water. Small fragments of light drifting down like stars falling into sleep. The war between light and shadow was over. Or so it seemed. As they turned to leave the shore, a faint whisper echoed behind them. It wasn't the voice of the being of light, nor the shadow. It was their own, but deeper, layered, almost doubled. "The memory survived," it said softly. but what survived with it. Far beneath the calm sea, in the silence of the deep, one faint flicker of darkness moved, slowly, patiently, toward the fragments of light. The morning after the storm, the world seemed new. The sky stretched wide and clean, the air lighter than it had been in weeks. The coastal town was quiet, its people emerging from their homes with a cautious sense of disbelief. The ocean, once restless and dark, now shimmered with a soft silver hue, as if traces of the ship still lingered beneath the surface. But there were no more strange lights, no more tremors or voices, only the steady rhythm of the waves returning to their old song. The marked person walked along the shore where it had all begun. The sand was cool underfoot, and the mark on their skin had faded to a faint, pale outline. They could still feel the echo of what had happened, the hum, the light, the shadow. But it was distant now, like a dream already half forgotten. They knew the world had changed, even if no one else could see it yet. Something deep beneath the sea had gone quiet, but it wasn't gone. It was waiting. Around the world, scientists and researchers struggled to explain the event. Satellites showed no trace of the ships. The readings that once defied logic had vanished completely. Some said it was a mass hallucination caused by electromagnetic storms. Others called it an alien encounter that governments were trying to hide. But no theory could explain the subtle shift that followed. The way technology began to behave differently, the way certain people started having the same dream of cities made of light. The marked person kept their distance from the noise and speculation. They had seen enough to know the truth didn't belong to headlines or reports. The truth was simpler and heavier. The alien empire hadn't perished completely. It had passed its memory, its last spark of existence, into humanity. That spark now lived quietly in the hearts of millions, perhaps guiding them toward something better, or maybe warning them of what could come again if power outweighed balance. As days turned into weeks, the person noticed small changes in themselves. They could sense things more clearly: the pull of tides, the hum of energy beneath the earth, the faint whispers of connections between all living things. It wasn't magic, just awareness, a reminder of what had once been shared across the stars. They began to write down what they remembered, not as a story of fear or invasion, but as a record of understanding. A message that what had arrived on Earth wasn't meant to conquer, but to remind humanity that creation and destruction were always twins, and balance was what kept both from consuming everything. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the person sat on the same dock where it had all started. The waves glowed faintly, reflecting the first stars above. For a moment, they thought they saw something moving far out at sea, a small flicker of light, distant but steady. It could have been nothing more than a trick of the water, but in their heart they felt it, a quiet pulse, the same rhythm that had once tied their life to the ships. They smiled, realizing the story wasn't really about endings. The black ships had come to deliver a final truth, that no empire, no matter how great, truly dies if its memory survives in those who learn from it. The shadow had been defeated, at least for now, but its lesson remained. Light can only exist when someone chooses to carry it forward. As the last light of the day faded, the marked person whispered to the sea, "We remember." The wind carried the words out over the waves, where they disappeared into the silver calm. Somewhere deep below, the faintest glimmer answered back, soft, steady, and eternal. The world turned quietly toward its next dawn, forever changed by the shadows of the black ships that had once risen from the sea.